strong stand when it comes to the implementation of the Constitution. But just what is the role of the church when it comes to the Constitution? Well, this morning we are joined by Bishop Mark Kariuki. He is the president of the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya. Martin Omwange, programs manager of the Catholic Justice and Peace Commission, together with Dr. Nelson Makanda, is the deputy secretary general of the NCCK. That is the question we want answered this morning. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions for them, 22422 is the SMS line. We'd like to hear from you, so start talking to us. For now, I hand you over to Mutegi. Mutegi?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
We were surprised by the Chief Justice's challenge to the church. Historically, the church has always been in forefront in fighting for freedoms, even independence and multipartyism. But this time, after the promulgation of the Constitution, the church apparently has gone flat, silent. Why is that so in your view? Maybe anybody?
That's surprising that you suppose that the church has gone silent. Perhaps it's the reporting that might have gone silent.
Journalism has always been there.
I think it's most likely the reporting, because the church is everywhere. We continue to speak. We continue to speak for the rights of Kenyans. When Kenyans have been hit and attacked by terrorism, the church has spoken. We continue to speak in this country on matters of education. We continue to speak and to offer help in this nation. But also we continue to speak to the government. So I'm not sure that the church has gone silent. Perhaps it's the first time that the Chief Justice is remembering that actually the church is there and they have a voice. I think it's more the part of the Chief Justice as opposed to being the part of the church being silent.
Bishop?
Yeah, I think it is important to know that the church has a mission, and the church has been fulfilling its mission in both the preaching and speaking for the common man. But again, if it's not reported, everybody will think the church has been silent. But we have been out there talking, and remember, the churches, we are right in the grassroots, and every Sunday we are talking to our congregations and telling them the issues that are going on and speaking on their behalf. So it is actually not true that the church has been silent. We have been very vocal.
What about the Catholic Church?
I think Bishop is very right that the church has been very vocal. If you read even in the newspapers, in most news that are brought out, especially when there are concerns about the Constitution implementation, the Catholic Church and the bishops have spoken hard on issues. The reason I can pick, and Bishop Mark has been on the forefront, for example, on the issue to do with the reproductive health bill. That is a part of the Constitution implementation that actually even Bishop Mark Kariuki has gone with the followers into the streets and said that actually we are going the wrong direction in terms of Constitution implementation, and reminding again people about what the church concerns were in the past when we were promulgating the Constitution, especially on Article 26 fall and Article 43 1A on issues of reproductive health, and not only on those issues but also generally even on devolution. The church has voiced itself it has given a lot of input in terms of this process of Constitution implementation and devolution. We've been invited in several forums, and as you can note in the community, as Bishop has said, we are everywhere in the community in terms of providing civic education. We have programs, for example, in CJPC, the Catholic Justice and Peace Commission, that are focused on forming people, on creating awareness on what is going on in constitutional implementation, and making sure that actually the interest of the general public or the Kenyan is taken into consideration. And we are not doing it away from, let's say, what I think as the Deputy Secretary General said, maybe we were forgotten, and it's now that actually the Chief Justice is remembering that we have a great role to play. Like in our case, we've even met with the Nyacha's Commission, the CIC, to talk about what will be the role of the church beyond the life of CIC in terms of monitoring and watching the process of constitution implementation. So we have a big role. The bishops have released the statements. We have a forum of mainstream church leaders where the Cardinal, His Eminence Cardinal John Njue, and ACK Bishop Wabukara and Methodist, head of Methodist Church, they come and talk about issues of governance and basically looking at constitution implementation. Every month they sit and review this. It's only that the approach maybe has changed, that instead of going head on and making demonstration like any other civil society, the church has an avenue of addressing these issues, either direct to Parliament or to the executive, to raise concern about what they need taken into consideration.
But we normally used to see Catholic bishops meet and issue statements on a certain issue. All the
National Council.
The council,
yes.
all pastoral letters from the church. When it comes to the constitutional implementation, or when Parliament makes things, they have recently made terrible things, passed made miserable things, which nobody returning is back. I haven't seen those pastoral letters.
You might remember, and I think this media house is very well informed, last November, holding our executive committee in Jumuiya conference in Limuru, we issued a statement and a letter, and even got space on the public media and shared. And in that statement, the gist of it was speaking to the nation and speaking to the president and asking the president, insecurity has gone haywire. What are you doing? And we made a proposal to the president, to the executive and parliament, if it means amending Kenyan laws, so that then we give more power to the security forces, to the president, to be able to reign on insecurity. We issued a statement, and I think a month later we had a security amendment bill. 2 weeks ago we had the General Assembly of the National Council of Churches of Kenya that happens every 3 years, and in that General Assembly we had sessions with the chairman of governors, the Council of Governors, Honorable Munya. In that assembly, we issued a statement that touches on the matters of constitution, and we spoke to the nation and addressed the matters that people are talking about. We talked about matters of productive health. We talked about matters Basic Education Act. We talked about issues security. We talked about matters devolution. But much more, we spoke about issues of amendment of the Constitution and the propositions that are coming forth. And we made a proposition that perhaps this is not the time to begin to speak at each other, but since everybody is agreeing with the church that this constitution has areas and sections that need to be amended, we need to come together and begin to talk together and agree on what areas do we need to amend, and then agree on a timeline of amending. Perhaps the church proposed, seated at Kanamai 2 weeks ago, that it would be important to think about attaching this to the forthcoming election or not taking it forward after this election. So the church is speaking. We are speaking about these matters.
And you remember right from the beginning, during the referendum, we spoke and we gave our position. And we had issues that we were talking about. Those issues, when you look at them, they are the issues that are now bringing in problems. We don't want to thumb our chests and say we told you, we told you. But we are, these things that are being opened, and we are saying the issues we stood for have not changed. The church has not changed on our position. We still hold on to those issues and many others. But now that the eyes of everybody else are getting opened up, when we come and say, okay, I think it is important for us, for the whole nation, to swallow our pride and say this constitution is very good, but there are areas that needs to be checked on so that we can move forward better and close some of the doors that we opened up.
I think the Chief Justice's concern was that Parliament is moving retrogressive bills that are eroding on what we passed in 2010. What is the church doing about that? There is a concern.
I think the church, and I think speaking about what I can mention what the church has issued a statement, For example, when we had an issue with ICC, which was an issue that actually was moving away from what we had foreseen in the Constitution in terms of aligning our Constitution and laws to the international provisions, the church issues a statement. And when there are issues to do with for example, the reproductive health, the church has issued a statement and said we are moving towards a bad direction. And many other issues that are coming in Parliament, the church has always issued a statement. And as I said, maybe the approach has changed. Like now is not always that everything comes in the floor of Parliament, then the church has to go to the media, because then what comes to the media doesn't really have the details and concern of the church. The bishops of the mainstream churches, as I said, they meet on a monthly basis and they evaluate what is in Parliament, for example, and present, for example, if there's a bill, let's say, on reproductive health, they'll present a document with areas of concern and what they want amended or rejected in that discussion, in that bill. So that approach, I think they are taking again, is an approach where, okay, the media might be, it is not really it doesn't come out in the media, but engaging and discussing on media or with parliamentary legislative organs of this state is very alive, and I can attest to you, maybe from NCCK and Evangelical Alliance, that people are engaging, the executive people are engaging the legislative arms of this country through means that are not really very confrontational like in the past we used to see. But because we have this means, we are building on, or we are counting on people that we've elected that are in Parliament, and we hope that actually they are carrying the aspiration of the country, that the only way to change laws that are retrogressive is by presenting documents that are clearly indicating the concerns of the church. And in their discussions, when they are holding their sessions in Parliament, most of these considerations, as the Deputy Secretary General said, for example, the Basic Education Act, they are elaborate discussions that have gone into records that the church has held these sessions with parliamentarians to discuss and say, look here, these areas of concern, like for example the Basic Education Act, if you remove the role of the sponsor from the Education Act institutions, then we don't have actually a way of forming children, a way of forming the young generation. So then the Chief Justice maybe is not aware of this discussion that are ongoing, and saying that the church is not really involved or is not as focal as it was in the past, is because again when you've discovered that actually the only way to change, for example, laws, the only way to change, to influence legislative in Parliament, is by having sober discussion in boardrooms and see what is at stake and how do we address it when we are talking about church. But how
effective is that? Because evil things are being done, bad things are being done, and you say you are talking. Why, if you are talking, why is it happening then?
Mutegi, let me begin to say that one of the things that this constitution gave us is that Kenyans were looking for independence of institutions. There before, Parliament was at the whims of the executive. Judiciary was at the whims of executive. And this constitution has consolidated independence of so many institutions. And so Parliament has the sole mandate of legislating and making laws in this country. You cannot coerce Parliament. You cannot push Parliament to act in a way that you like. It's an independent institution, and in this country, all that we can do is to ask Parliament to work within the Constitution, within the law, and perhaps the most critical aspect of this Constitution is opening up space for citizen participation in the making of laws in Parliament. And so for us as a church community, our responsibility is to urge Parliament, when they do legislation, to bring them out, to give time for citizens to participate. But where they have acted in ways that they have not given citizens to participate fully, but also they have not legislated in the interest of our constitution and this nation, then the responsibility goes to Chief Justice, because then that matter should be rehearsed in the High Court. And when it comes to the High Court, we ask the Chief Justice with his officers to be independent because they have power over every law that is passed in this country. They have a responsibility, and it may be good for you to know that the church actually has gone to court over certain laws, and there are matters in court that are...
Like which one? Maybe you can tell people.
Marriage bill. Marriage bill, which contravenes Section 45 of the Constitution.
What is faulty there?
The marriage bill was put up and they consolidated all the laws that were there previously and created an omnibus law that brings together the Christian, the Hindu, the Muslim, the African marriage and the civil marriage. And so they put all these laws together. Having gone ahead and put all these laws together, they began to include sections in that act that discriminate against the Christians, and put up laws and regulation to roll out the marriage law that denies the right and the privilege, takes away the right to get married for Christians, and we have gone to court about this matter. So then the church is engaged, and so the matter is before him. It's in the High Court. So it's really his responsibility now to say, my officers, since these matters, the laws that have been passed are not as good as we would like for this constitution and this country, then let his institution, which he rules, he is the president of that institution. It's independent. So he's got to exercise that independence and give us what is the right judgment.
Perhaps he's asking for your help.
What help can we give him?
Let him be open and say, I have failed in this area, I need help from the church, and we will come in. Because you see, you know, we were told these guys have not gone to school, they don't know anything, they just know John 3:16. But in the church, we have the lawyers there, we have people who have gone to school, and we don't just come out and speak and shout, but we have information from those who have studied. But when he comes and says, I think I need help in this area, we will come in and help as much as we can. At the same time, we have members of parliament in our churches, so we've been meeting with the members of parliament and talking to them, so that they can see the things from the perspective of the church. So the church is really involved, maybe not so much on the media, but within the grassroots, there is a lot of work that is going on.
Is it the case that there's a perception that the credibility of the church is getting eroded because of the performance of certain church leaders?
You see, the problem we have is when we generalize the whole thing. If you go to Muthurwa market and you buy one sack of potatoes, the fact that one potato is rotten in the sack, you don't say all the potatoes in Muthurwa market are rotten. All you need to do is to get the rotten potato and remove it, and you are left with the rest of the sack, which is intact and very healthy. So there's been that problem of saying, because there is one in the church who may not be who may be rotten, the whole church is rotten. That's not. I
don't know whether it's one. The whole philosophy of preaching people so that they can be rich.
You see,
there are many of them. Prosperity gospel.
No, when we talk of the prosperity gospel, you have got to understand that that's what Jesus preached. The first message that Jesus preached, he said, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to preach the good news to the poor. What is the good news to the poor? It's not that you will sleep good. The good news to the poor is that you can also be rich. But you notice that the rich don't tell the poor how to be rich. So it is the only problem is when I bring the good news to the poor to enrich myself as an individual, then there is a problem.
That's what the problem is.
But if I want to change their lives, if I'm changing their lives, I am bringing to them the gospel that will change their lives. That somebody can look back at their life 2 years after coming to church and see, wow, my life is different. And remember this, when their lives are changed, even the life of the preacher will be changed.
What do you think about the prosperity gospel as Catholics?
I think one thing I think we give it a different approach. That for the Catholic, it's about the whole formation. About how do I form somebody to be all round. It's not about really, as you're saying, preaching. It's about formation, and that's why if you see the difference is that okay, you cannot really say we don't preach prosperity gospel, because any preaching, if you don't give people hope of being able to see beyond now and seeing the future. Even you, when you are in primary, you are anticipated to be somebody in future, and you looked upon maybe the teachers who are teaching you, and the church, the Catholic Church, has a different approach that actually it forms people. It has to build institutions and give people education, which is the same thing. I can say that people are talking about prosperity gospel, but it's all about giving people hope for the future and encouraging them to work hard towards improving their lives and improving the society where they are living. And maybe it's because we don't terrify that and say we are preaching prosperity gospel, but in a way there is a way that the Catholic Church has to work around issues of prosperity to make sure that people are liberated from their worse conditions to better conditions in future.
And I think it's important to realize that when you talk of the prosperity gospel, you're not talking about money in your pocket. You're not talking about the whole life. Your whole life has changed. Your way of thinking has changed. The way you look at things has changed. So it brings a transformation in the mind of an individual. Not just seeing 10 shillings in my pocket, 100 shillings in my pocket, or owning this car, or owning this type of a house, or owning this kind of thing.
That's what we are talking about. You've seen priests or bishops, or so-called bishops, some of them you don't even know which school they went to, but they're bishops, who drive top-of-the-range vehicles. Some of them are here even planes. And their congregation, their church is only maybe a tent, not even a stone building, it's a tent. How do you justify that kind of thing?
I think, Tegi, it would be good to appreciate that the church is an organism. And it continues to grow, and it expresses itself differently and manifests itself differently. And Jesus, talking about the church, he says that a farmer went out to sow seeds, and after sowing seeds, he went to sow wheat. After he sowed wheat, at night, another person came and threw in some tares. And so people came and asked him, what did we do? Do we uproot the tares? Jesus said, no, you don't uproot the tares. Let the tares and the wheat grow together. He is coming. And so, if there's anybody out there who is pretentious, who is doing things that are not right, they have a way in which they shall account. And there are ways in this country. Churches are registered institutions under the Society Act. And so, there are laws that each church community, each denomination and religion can operate legally in this country. And so if there's any clergy, if there's any bishop, if there's anybody who is operating outside the framework that has been laid down, then let the law take its course. But if it's just criticism because a church leader owns a good car, I do not think it's worth it. Because what's the problem with a church leader owning a good car? What's the problem with a church leader living in a good house? However, having said that, it would be good to say that the church carries the mandate of prosperity of the whole person. Body, mind, soul, and spirit. And so we continue to urge churches, we continue to urge church leaders to proclaim a message that prospers their people in totality. As the National Council of Churches of Kenya, we have endeavored to encourage all the churches that are our members to begin to engage in matters that help their members prosper. It's not just preaching on Sunday, but also asking them, go out there and look for capital and begin to invest. National Council of Churches of Kenya runs a small micro enterprise called SMEP bank, MFI. And so go out there and borrow some money and begin to do some business that allows you to put some money in your pocket and allows you to live in a good house. The church invests in health in this country. About 45% of health in this country is provided for by church. That is about prosperity, and that's the prosperity we are talking about. The church invests in this country in schools. 62% of schools, basic education schools in this country are church-owned or church-run, and so the church has the interest of prosperity. So it's not like when we talk about prosperity, the church is a visitor. As Bishop has said, the church is engaged. We are engaged in the matters of helping each child, each woman, each man, each boy develop holistically. But because there are one or two preachers in this country who stand there and begin to say, if you send me 310, your wealth will be multiplied, that doesn't really tend the image and the work that the church is doing. It's only one out of all those things, and perhaps the tares and the weeds. Yes.
Let's go back to Parliament. You said Parliament is supreme. They are the ones who can make laws.
Yes.
Like now, the Constitution says we will have elections every second Tuesday of August. That's what the law says.
Yes, yes.
Members of Parliament to change that.
Yes.
What's the view of the church generally?
Really, we gave ourselves a constitution.
Yes.
And in that constitution, we went out and said we will have election every second Tuesday of August in the 5th year.
Yeah.
And that happens to be 2017 August, that Tuesday, second Tuesday. And within that law framework, we also said, should there be anything in this law that we feel like we want to change, we put out a mechanism of how to go about changing those sections. However, the thing that is happening now, it has to do, as much as there are the pros and cons about it, but let's talk about the current parliament. The current parliament is concerned that their term is not going to be 5 years. It was shortened because elections happened in March and they should be out in August. They are going to be in parliament only for 4.5 years. And so they feel like they are not going to have all their time. And so they want to change time so that then they allow also themselves to enjoy a little bit more, 3 months of time. But perhaps they have argued and said December is where we have always done our elections. But now we have broken that rule. We did elections in March, and elections went on very well. It was in December. We had elections in March that were very peaceful. The turnout was more than we have ever seen any other turnout before in the history of elections in this country. So that argument does not hold water. And so if they wish to change this law and take it to December, our own suggestion would be that then change it and ask that it be implemented from the following election, not these elections, where they benefit, because they are interested party in this matter.
Mm-hmm. Basically, to build on what Dr. is saying, that actually, if we went by the approach the current parliament is giving, most of the things that they might change would be for their own interest, as we're seeing, that they are championing clearly their own interest as opposed to the interest of Kenyans. And as is mentioned, I don't see anything wrong us going for election in August if we had elections in March. And if they could be arguing that maybe their term will be shortened and their benefit to be extended outside that period, then that is better. I could consider it as to give them more time, maybe their benefits that are accrued to their, as parliamentarians, they can be given. But to break away from the system that Kenyans struggle to change of going to election in December and have election in August, they should respect that. And if they want to change it, let it be again subjected to the to a referendum where all Kenyans will give their opinion if they want this constitution be changed to provide for elections to be held in December. Because again, we've seen, okay, we've elected them to represent our interests, but when it comes to matters election, matters of their extending their time in parliament, that comes to their personal interest as opposed to the interest of the whole nation or the Kenyans as such.
I think the major challenge we are having is the challenge of personal interest. That we have very few leaders, if any, who have the nation at heart. that whatever they do, they are doing at the back of their minds, asking, how do I benefit? If it's tendering or giving out tenders, how do I benefit out of this? If it is development, how do I benefit as an individual out of this? So if they're going to change, I agree with my colleagues, let them change, but let it not get effected this time until the next parliament, that it gets effected in the next parliament, so that it doesn't, they don't do it for their own benefit. And I think there's got to be a mind change in Kenyans, and so that we have the nation first and then self later. If we can have our nation first, we think about the nation, we think how can we better our nation, and then our own interests, I think we will move very, 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 very far.
There are two moves to have a referendum between now and next election. One from the ODM or CORD, the other one from the Council of Governors. I don't know whether...
I don't think there are two moves. The Senate... The Senate,
even the Senate.
Yes,
even the Senate.
So they are more than
wants amendment so that they can have more power themselves, like you are saying.
Yes, and that's what we have spoken to. We have said, I think, given that all of us now are agreeing with the church that we have a constitution that needs to be amended, let's harmonize all these questions. And having harmonized the issues that are there, let's put them out there to vote, preferably together with the next election. If that is not doable, then let's consider to do this after the next elections, because the time between now and 2017 August is too short to begin to engage in two elections. And so as a church, the National Council of Churches of Kenya, the General Assembly, seated from the 10th to 13th of August in Kanamai, proposed that let's consolidate all these things. Let's not talk at each other. Let's bring all these questions together. Let those that are involved, CIC, Parliament, the Executive, bring all these matters together. Let's draft a law that unifies all these questions, and let's begin to talk about it and begin to agree, is it a question alongside the elections or a question that will be brought in a referendum after the next elections? I think that is a fair way to go on that matter.
Is the view of the Catholic Church?
I think as the basically is that there are concerns, and still the church concerns remain the same about what was the issue about the current constitution that we are talking about. And we are not in any way aligning with what are the other political interests that are coming here after we promulgated the constitution. But we looked at the document, the church looked at the document when it was still a draft, and their concerns were very clear. And still, if it has to happen, I think the Catholic Church, and especially the Justice and Peace Commission chairman, has spoken about it in the past, that actually if the reforms or the amendments have to happen to the constitution, they have to be taken into the interest of the Kenyan has to be taken into consideration, not only the interest of politicians who have agendas that are self-driven, that don't really look at the interest of Kenyan as such. When you look at, for example, the governors with their move with Pesa Mashinani, what is the interest of Pesa Mashinani? We've had issues about the 15% already the national government is giving to the county government. They are not able to put the house in order and deliver services as it is envisioned in this constitution. And when you're asking for more, are you clearly telling us that are they able to say that we've, for example, worked with the 15% in provision of health services, and this is what we are lacking? What we are seeing for example, from the Auditor General is we are seeing a lot of abuses. We are seeing a lot of leakages, corruptions at the county. So we moved corruption from national level, we moved it to the county, and we are seeking to have more money at the county, but we are not able really to say that we can account fully for the 15% that we having, which is the different interest with the church. The church is talking about moral issues, which were from the beginning very clear in the constitution that if you want to have the interest of formation and moral, remove some provisions that were provided in the constitution. For example, the issue that opens up issues to do with reproductive health and gives people now an open blank check to discuss about reproductive health, saying that any other written law, for example Article 26(4), can provide for issues to do with reproductive health. And that's why we are seeing every kind of laws that are coming in Parliament that clearly don't take into consideration issues of moral issues. And for example, when you look at that reproductive health care, when somebody is telling you that a child of 10 years to 19 can access reproductive health services without the consent of the parent, and this is the child that you're having in the house, you're paying school fees, and you want to form him to become a person in future, and then you let him choose for himself what he wants to do in terms of reproductive health, accessing contraception and all these things. And the church is clearly saying that actually these are the concerns, and moving forward, if anything has to be amended, is to take into consideration moral issues in the constitution.
Let's get the view of the bishop.
I think the challenge that we are having is politicizing everything, such that if the church comes up now with the issue of the referendum, which is at the back of our mind, it's going to be politicized again, like the first time. So we are not able as a people to discuss things and keep politics outside. And when the politicians come in, they come in with their personal interests. So we need to get to a point where we look at these issues outside politics, so that we have the nation at heart. And we don't just look at the nation today. We look at the nation 10 years from today, 2030 vision. We look at it ahead. When we look at it ahead, how would you want Kenya to be 30 years from today? And so that you get yourself out of it, that is going to help us a lot. Otherwise, we have issues, so many issues, and it looks as maybe not everybody, many people have looked at it and now they agree with the church. They may not say we have agreed with the church, but you can see what the church said during the referendum. Now they agree with it.
As church leaders, what do you say about the present difficulties we have between the teachers and the Teachers Service Commission? That there are going to be a strike tomorrow, or maybe from today, because the money cannot be paid.
I think it is important to respect the judiciary.
But if the government doesn't have the money,
what about all these billions we are reading about that has been swindled, that is not accounted for? You see, when you read when you look at the things that are going on, there is a lot of money in this nation. The problem is the money is going into different places where it's not supposed to be. Let's bring the money back. Let's give service to our people. If we give service to our people, we will move forward.
I think it's good to emphasize that there are sectors in this country and in any economy that are fundamental and foundational: education, health, and food security. I think three sectors that ought to be well thought out, well funded by government, and so on the current matters of teachers. I think teachers have been at this for very long. From 1997, promised increment will come. I'm not sure that increment came in full. They have been at this for a very long time. The teachers last year went on strike, and TSC and the government went to court, and the court said you must call off your strike. In fact, the officials were arrested. Some of them went to court, and they actually called off their strike, and they have been patient in court when the government itself went to court. So since the government itself went to court to seek for arbitration, and the court arbitrated, really. And so for us is to say, let the government not be lousy and begin to sit on its own matters and to recant its own moves. Because in doing that, they are playing around with Kenyan child they're playing around with the lives of these teachers. I mean, teachers are citizens of this country like any other citizen, and the employees, and if it means being remunerated, I think let the government put its act together and deal with this matter so that we do not hurt education. And as I said, education, health, and food security are major sectors that this government need to sit and think about critically.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We've run out of time. And with that remark from the NCSK, viewers, I think you know now that maybe we're convinced that the church is not silent on this matter. They are very active. Let's go now and listen to the boys' band.